All right, Eytan, good to see you again.
Great to be back. Great to see you again. Great to see that your book is selling in good numbers and you're traveling all around Norway.
Thank you. Yeah, this book, the Frykt og stillhet, which is fear and silence in English. Yeah, I'm very happy about it too. It was actually right in on the top 10 in Norway when it came out. So I'm thinking about actually translating it maybe to different languages, to perhaps German for the German market, perhaps in English, perhaps in Hebrew. Do you think people in Israel would be interested in reading something?
I'll buy a copy. If you translate it to Hebrew, I'll be the first one to buy a copy.
Then finally you can read it.
Yes, that's right. Whether you translate it to English or Hebrew, I'll be your first customer.
Yeah. Thank you. But how are you these days, and what's going on?
Yeah, I'm okay. They told me, they frightened me. Norway, Oslo, December. It's going to be minus, I don't know how many degrees. Snow for Israelis. These are very scary thoughts, but winter hasn't arrived, really. And I guess this is climate change in action. Here it's in pluses, and in Israel it's 25, 26 degrees, which is...
Yeah, I was recently there, and I was swimming in the ocean by the beach in Tel Aviv, and it was like 27 degrees in the water.
Not bad.
It's like those kinds of degrees you almost never see in Norway in the water, even at like midsummer.
Of course.
But sometimes you have snow in Israel too, right? I don't think a lot of people know about that you can actually go skiing and slalom in Israel.
You can, right in the north, in the Hermon Mountain. You can go skiing. Good luck with the traffic jams getting there. But yeah, you can go skiing in the north of Israel, and you can enjoy the desert in the south of Israel. And it's just a few hours journey by car. And then in Jerusalem as well, sometimes there is snow. And then when there's snow in Israel, everything collapses.
Yeah.
We're not used to it.
Have you ever gone skiing there?
I've never skied in my life.
No?
So I thought, I'm going to come to Norway. Yeah. I'm going to learn to ski. There'll be snow everywhere, but anyway, we're waiting for it.
Bring back the knowledge of skiing to the Israeli people. Listen,
That's
people.
Right. That's right.
I will teach you.
What I really like in Oslo, and I've seen it since I arrived, is those who are already preparing for skiing, and you see them doing that kind of dry skiing and the roads around Oslo, and going through the roads with the skis with wheels, which is something I've never seen before. But I'm looking forward to learning.
Do you think we'll ever see Israel in the Olympics in cross-country skiing competing against Norway?
We have some teams in the Winter Olympics. I saw we have a bobsleigh team.
Oh yeah,
it's a bit like the film Cool Runnings. If you know the Jamaican bobsleigh team, it's about the same. It's about the same. We're not known for our excellence in winter sports.
Can't imagine why.
We do okay in the Summer Olympics, but it still will be a proud moment to see Israel in the Winter Olympics. We're not going to bring home any medals.
Yeah,
we'll leave that to the Norwegians. Yeah. But it's good to see us there.
Yeah,
and see the Israeli flag not on the podium, but
no.
But there.
Speaking of competitions, what do you think about the recent brouhaha and all that stuff around the Eurovision drama about Israel's competing in there?
Well, firstly, I'm happy to see that Norway is going to be part of Eurovision.
Yeah.
And there's only a few countries that are boycotting it, but it's a shame. That's not what Eurovision is supposed to be about. Eurovision is about bringing people together, not pushing people apart. And perhaps there wouldn't have been all this noise if Israel hadn't been so successful in recent years in Eurovision. Last year and the year before, Israel won the public vote. So, there are these protests and calls for Israel to be kicked out or not to participate, but time after time, Israel does very, very well in Eurovision. And I imagine this year will be no different. And I hope that Norway will give quite a few of its points to Israel, as it did last year as well. But there's this such difference between what you hear on the streets and the protests and then what you see in the voting. That the public, often they're quite quiet day to day. When it comes to the competition itself, you see there is so much support for Israel. And Eurovision is one example where we see that support.
How do you read that contrast between the judges and the politics of it and what actually normal, ordinary people think in their popular vote? How do you read that?
I think it just puts what we see on the streets into perspective. There's a minority, I think quite a small minority, that goes out and shouts very loudly and tries to put a lot of pressure and to intimidate those who make decisions. But ultimately, most people don't like that and they don't connect with it. And then Eurovision is this chance for them to show what they really think and say this what we see on the streets in the city center of Oslo on Saturday afternoons, that doesn't represent everybody. And this is our chance to show that that's the case.
You know, that gives me associations to what I've heard. I actually heard your Prime Minister Netanyahu say in his speech, I think it was to the United Nations, where I think it was there, I'm not going to say for certain, but I think he said that, you know, a lot of world leaders in their countries, they are against Israel, but privately they call me and they actually support Israel, but they can't say that to their countries nationally. What do you think about that statement?
I think there's a lot of leaders who they have their own domestic audience, and for political reasons, they have to speak the language of the street. But of course, within closed rooms, I'm sure the dialogue is very different, and there are mutual interests. But politicians always looking towards the next election and the next vote, and they have their electorate, and therefore they have to speak. And you see it really in the Arab world, especially. Leaders in the Arab world can be very critical and hostile towards Israel when they speak to their own population. But those who have relationships with Israel, they know how critical that relationship is with Israel, and the mutual interest and the need for stability in that relationship. So of course, there's two different languages that they speak. That's a fact of life in the Middle East for sure. And we saw throughout the war in Gaza, we saw it very clearly. On one hand, take a look at Egypt. The Egyptian leadership, when it talks to its own public, will be very, very hostile and critical of Israel. But just a couple of months ago, signed a deal to import natural gas from Israel worth $35 billion. So the two very different languages. We know how to put these two languages into context. But we see it not just in the Middle East. We see it in Europe as well. Speaking to their electorate in order to get votes. But they know deep down, and in private conversations, of course, that we have clear interests. But sometimes they're afraid to say it to the street.
Do you think this goes for Norway as well, and Norwegian politicians and prime minister?
I knew that was going to be your question.
Let's get you out on the limb here.
No, look, I think it's really regrettable that in the election campaign in Norway, so much of the debate was dedicated to condemning Israel and supposedly supporting the Palestinians. Israel became the political football of the election campaign. And look, I'm not Norwegian. I don't vote here. But I would have thought that the public would want to hear about things that are happening in this country and that matter to them. Energy, cost of living, taxation, various topics that matter domestically. But there's something about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the war in Gaza, which it just gets everybody very excited. And therefore, for some politicians, that's the easiest way to get votes.
Do you think it's like symbolism, symbolic politics, like just one of those things on the chart that you have to check the boxes on, like climate, you have to be against Trump, you have to do this, oh, you have to be against Israel, like just one of those things, like a symbol?
It's it connects in many ways to identity, and if you want to connect to certain parts of the population, then Israel is a great way to get people identifying with a cause. And there's no cause seemingly that gets people more excited or worried or gets more people together than the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. You don't see people getting anywhere near as excited when other things happen in the world. But there's something about us that gets people very upset. And have to question what the motivation is for that, and where are these same people nowadays? Where are these same people nowadays? The day after the ceasefire, for 2 years, since October the 7th, they said, we need a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire. An end to the war, an end to violence. Now that there's a ceasefire and Hamas is trying to re-exert power, and we all know that if Hamas stays in power, the next October the 7th is only a matter of time away. But where are these people now? Why aren't they in the street saying, give up thankfully today, one remaining hostage, disarm Hamas, put an end to violence? Because we all know that as long as Hamas stays in power, there's no peaceful future, there's no peaceful prospect for the Middle East. It's only a matter of time until the next war. So if these protesters really, truly believe in an end to the war, they should be out there in the streets today saying an end to the war means the end of Hamas. I haven't seen them out in the center of Oslo calling for the end of Hamas. So, it's very one-sided. I can't say it surprises me, but that's the reality.
And there's that double standard too, because you would think that if people are really truly on the side of innocent Palestinians, I've started saying innocent Palestinians instead of civilian Palestinians, because as we know, as we've seen on video, what civilian Palestinians did on October 7th, like joining in on October 7th, the massacres, and when Hamas brought the hostages, the Israeli hostages, back into Gaza, they were chiming and they were beating them with sticks and spitting on. Those were presumably civilian Palestinians. So I think that's a loaded term to say. So I'd rather say innocent Palestinians, the ones who actually want peace with Israel and didn't join in on October 7th. Those are the innocent ones. And where is the support for these people from the pro-Palestinian side and from the politicians now that we've seen IDF has withdrawn, the war is over as we know it? And what we're seeing in the streets is that Hamas is dragging out innocent Palestinians for daring to criticize them, for demonstrating against them, to speaking out against them, and then beating them in the streets, torturing them, killing them. And everybody knows this. We've seen this on social media everywhere, but their voices are silent.
We've seen it for 20 years since Hamas took over Gaza. That is a key question. If you care for say, the innocent Palestinian in Gaza, who wants a better life, free from conflict and war, then the enemy of the innocent Palestinian who seeks peace is Hamas. If you want a peaceful future for the Palestinian people, then Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, cannot be part of the day after in Gaza. That is critical. Even if you don't care about Israelis living in peace and you only care about the Palestinians, then that has to be part of the campaign. Hamas uses and abuses its population, has done for the past 20 years since it took over Gaza, and horrific stories, and they have used extreme violence and interrogation and executions in the street and throwing their political rivals off the top of buildings. If you are a friend of the Palestinian people, if you say you are a friend of the Palestinian people, then you need to be out there in the streets today demanding the end of Hamas. That's clear. There is no peaceful future for either the Israelis or the Palestinians as long as Hamas is there.
But why aren't we seeing that? How do you read that? Why are they so silent, the pro-Palestinian voices and pro-Palestinian politicians?
We see repeatedly that when Israel is no longer involved, then it doesn't bring people out to the streets. There are some people who get worked about Israel defending itself. The moment that is a inside Palestinian issue, there are also some within call it the anti-Israel movement, who their motivations are not about the Palestinians or Israel. Their motivation is that they just don't like Jews, and as a result, they don't like the Jewish state. They certainly don't like Jews defending themselves. But for those who really have the Palestinians at the center of their campaign and truly care for the Palestinians, and I'm sure there are some like that, Where are they? I think that the organizations, like the Palestine Committee, that leads these protests, I don't think they care. I think it's all about the destruction of the state of Israel and the denial of Israel's right to self-defense, and in many cases, denial of the Jewish state's right to exist. That's what drives the main organizations. So for those within the anti-Israel movement or pro-Palestinian movement who do care about the Palestinians and understand that Hamas has to go for there to be a peaceful future, I just don't think they have the organizational backing. That's not what motivates the leadership of this campaign.
Because I think it's so hypocritical, because I feel like nobody's speaking up for truly innocent Palestinians. I feel like almost I have to be that voice, because they have no voice, because these, like the Palestinian community, they obviously don't care. And I think it's so blatant to see how they don't even try to fake it. Like if they were strategic, like PR wise, they would at least try to say something so they wouldn't be caught on being so hypocritical and having that double standard where they don't care. But they just think they get away with it. They don't care to speak up.
I'm certain that the next time that a Palestinian terror group attacks Israel and Israel responds, well, when Israel responds, they'll be there. Yeah. They'll take to the streets again. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
October the 7th was a very prominent example. In the past 2 years, they've gained a lot of momentum. But it's not the first time. When Israel defends itself, you can be certain that these organizations will come out. And,
because I don't think there's a contradiction actually between supporting Israel's right to exist and supporting Israel and also supporting truly innocent Palestinians. I feel like that is the same thing, because they both have the same enemy, which is Hamas. Hamas is the enemy of innocent Palestinians, and Hamas is the enemy of Israelis. There's no contradiction.
That's right. It goes together. But for many, it becomes like supporting a football team.
Yeah,
you can either support one side or the other, and there's no room for sympathy with the other. One place where I think we saw it recently here in Oslo is this, what I see as this ridiculous debate about this carpet in the National Museum. This mourning carpet refers to a horrific terror attack in the north of Israel over 50 years ago, in the early 1970s in northern Israel. And the anti-Israel campaign cannot cope or deal with the fact that there is a carpet that presents Israeli suffering, because in some way that takes away from what is happening today in the Middle East. Now, if you truly care about human suffering, then you will care about human suffering no matter the identity, no matter the citizenship. It shouldn't matter whether they're an Israeli or a Palestinian. If you care about peace in the Middle East and you want a peaceful future, then you should be able to cope with seeing a carpet that remembers the murder of dozens of schoolchildren, Israeli schoolchildren in the north of Israel. But there's this process which is incredibly disturbing, which it's a movement which attempts to eradicate Israel in every single part of society. It doesn't matter what it is or where it is. You can't have even a trace of Israel, even if it's innocent Israeli victims of terror. They cannot leave a trace of Israel anywhere in Norwegian society, whether it's a carpet, whether it's the Israeli football team, whether it's, I don't know what else, but wherever there is any mention or symbol or reference to Israel, it must be eradicated. And that to me doesn't sound like a movement which seeks peace and coexistence. That sounds to me like a movement that just wants to destroy the state of Israel and any trace of it anywhere in Norway.
Do you feel like the word Israel and the country of Israel is just a substitute word for Jew?
I think the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948 was the greatest gift for the anti-Semite. Anti-Semitism didn't end with the end of the Holocaust and the Second World War. It just, in many cases, mutated and changed shape. Today, you can't stand in the middle of Oslo and say, "I hate Jews, Jews out of Norway." You can't say it.
Yet.
People would say, "You're a racist. You're an anti-Semite. Not acceptable." If you say, "Zionists out of Norway, Zionists out of Oslo," or "Israelis out of Norway, Israelis out of Oslo," then it still is permissible, and you can still get away with saying these things. So in many cases, the easiest thing for the anti-Semite to do, who still exists 80 years after the end of World War II and the Holocaust, is just to talk about Zionists or Israelis. That's why I say it's the greatest gift to the anti-Semite, because you just wrap that anti-Semitic language in, disguise it with other words.
But do you know that it actually broke that camouflage, I would say, and they actually said it outright, literally, during the summer now when Habib Retigur was here in Arendal, the Arendal week. The pro-Palestinian demonstrators, they were following them, and they were actually chanting the literal words, "No Jews in our streets." Like, they didn't even bother to swap it out for Zionists. They said, "No Jews."
The mask slips.
Yes.
On various occasions. Seen it recently in the United States. A lot of protests outside synagogues, or also in London. The protest routes of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign that goes by on Saturday mornings, just outside one of the key synagogues in the center of London. I think if you say you are an anti-Israel protester, but you find yourself standing outside synagogues and protesting Jews, and there's something suspicious there, and there's something that maybe what angers you is Jews living their lives, and not so much Israel. But of course, the mask slips every now and again, and you see the real intention behind some of these protesters.
The mask also slipped yesterday. I saw a picture from the United States. I think it was in San Jose, California, where these kids went to a high school. They decided to lay down on the ground, on the grass in like a football stadium or something, and they formed a human swastika.
I saw that. I saw that. No, pure vicious anti-Semitism. And I said there's an attempt in many cases to disguise it as anti-Zionism, as extreme anti-Zionism, but sometimes the mask slips. In the same way that if you say, Jews should get out of Israel, go back to Europe. We didn't all come from Europe. Half of my family came from Aleppo in Syria. Never mind. And the only religion or nation or group of people that you say does not have a right to self-determination is the Jews, then you are an anti-Semite. If you want to say that no, there should be no Christian states, no Jewish states, no Muslim states, no Arab states, and reject self-determination to anyone and everyone, okay. But if the only group that you say does not have the right to self-determination in their ancient homeland is the Jews, then you are an anti-Semite.
What's interesting is also that if you rewind back to the days of the war, like an image comes to mind when we speak about this from the 1940s here in Oslo. We could see on the wall at Karl Johans gate, it says, "Jews go back to Palestine," right? At which time they actually called the Jewish homeland Palestine, as we know. But anyway, they said Jews go back to Palestine, and now they're saying Jews can't live in what's now called Israel, go back to somewhere else. Like, regardless of where Jews are, they're not wanted. They have to go back to this country, and that's wrong. You have to get out of that country.
Right.
Do you see a pattern here?
So what you're saying is the issue isn't really about where Jews are, but rather the issue is about Jews. Of course. I know there's that famous picture from the early 1940s here in Oslo, and that proves exactly the point. It's not about where we are, and it's not recent. It was before the Holocaust. It's today. It goes back hundreds of years. There is the theological anti-Semitic idea of the wandering Jew, and that Jews have been banished for eternity and they must wander the world. It's pure anti-Semitism, and it doesn't matter where we are. they won't be happy. And for those who are saying those anti-Semites who say, Jews must leave the state of Israel and go back to where they came from. Well, we look at what happened to the Jews when they were there. If you're saying that Jews should go back to Eastern Europe, well, we know what happened to the Jews of Eastern Europe in the 1930s and the 1940s. So, what do you want? What do you want? The issue is with Jews, not about where we are or what we do. And as I said, for the anti-Semite, there is nothing more frustrating or annoying than the fact that the Jews have a state of their own with a strong military that is able to defend the Jewish people for the first time in over 2,000 years. There's nothing more annoying than that.
Yeah, I wonder if that is actually a key issue here, because throughout the centuries and the millennia, Jews didn't really have like military or the ability to stand up against the pogroms and the massacres and the persecution. And then it's like the whole of Europe is like used to Jews just dying when they're getting slaughtered and killed. Just that's how the Jews should behave when we're massacring them, like almost, right? But then suddenly we see after 1948 and with the rise of the Israeli state and the IDF, the Jew now has weapons, and that's something like, this is surprising. This is not how a Jew is supposed to react when we're persecuting them. What is this? It's like almost like they're intimidated by it, or is like annoyed by it. That this isn't supposed to happen. This isn't the pattern we're used to with Jews.
I think that's very, very true. For the first time in over 2 millennia, Jews are able to form their own destiny. Our destiny is in our own hands. And we can look after ourselves. We can defend ourselves. We can defend ourselves against the existential threats that today is the likes of Iran that pose the existential threats to us. In every generation, there's another existential threat. For the first time in over 2 millennia, we're able to defend ourselves. And for some, that's just unacceptable. And that's what brings them out to the streets. The Jewish state taking action to protect itself. And what we saw over the last 2 years, the response to Israel defending itself across the world, affecting Jewish diaspora communities, the rise in anti-Semitism is exactly the proof that's necessary for the existence of the state of Israel. That it proves that there is still a need for a Jewish state that can provide refuge and safety to Jews who face violence all over the world. That's exactly what the Jewish state is about. The anti-Semites who demand the destruction of the state of Israel are proving exactly why the state of Israel is necessary.
And it's almost like I feel like I read rhetoric such as the anti-Semites' typical response would be when Israel defends itself, is like it's almost because Israel is such a strong military, it's almost like unfair that Israel has the ability to defend itself. It's unfair that they have this Iron Dome. It's unfair that they have all this technology. There should be so much more losses on the Israeli side. This is unfair. It's that crazy kind of rhetoric.
Right, and I thank God that my nation invested huge amounts of money in defensive technology to defend our people. It's invested in, of course, there's today the new modern technologies which enable to enable us to defend ourselves, but from bomb shelters in every building for every family, and today incredible technologies like the Iron Dome, like the Arrow defense systems, and recently now we launched this laser defense system.
Speak about this. Is it operational now?
So it just passed its final tests a couple of months ago, so now it's ready for deployment. It is operational. I'm not sure whether it has been deployed yet, but it is fully functional, and this is a game changer. For shooting down rockets, you no longer need ammunition. You have a laser system that just burns these rockets in the air.
Wow.
Very much kind of sci-fi, very futuristic.
Jewish space lasers.
Jewish space lasers. But this
just to confirm all the myths and
all the
stereotypes.
conspiracies. but it's an incredible piece of technology. It's been developed over the last few decades, and it essentially has unlimited ammunition.
Now, will this apply for all the distances? Because I know you have these 3 different systems. It's like Iron Dome David Sling,
David
and
Sling,
arrow,
yes.
which is for different distances from the
Correct.
target. So where will this?
So my understanding, this is really a replacement for the Iron Dome.
Yeah.
For short range rockets, either fired in recent years from either Gaza or from Lebanon. It's not for the intercontinental ballistic missiles that are shot or launched from much further away. But through this war and in previous war, we've dealt with thousands and thousands of short-range rockets, which are also incredibly destructive if we didn't have the Iron Dome technology. So sometimes there are those who look at Israel and say, well, you have these wonderful technologies, great defense systems. Why do you have to go out and so extensively defend yourself? Well, we're not going to apologize for defending our people. And if our adversaries, if those in Gaza, Lebanon, Iran had invested the same amount of money in defense rather than investing in how to destroy the state of Israel, then
in offense,
then their civilians would be a lot better off.
And will this new laser system, will it be as precise as the previous Iron Dome system?
My understanding is that it is very, very advanced and very precise. And
much more economically sustainable for Israel.
Certainly.
Because how much does it cost for Israel every time you fire off a rocket?
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. And also it takes time physically. You have these defense batteries, and after you defend yourself and fire these interceptors, then you have to refill it, and it costs money and constant manufacturing. And here you have a system which essentially is unlimited.
I've heard such sums as like from $10,000 US to $100,000 US for every rocket launch where you're going to shoot down missiles incoming.
Right. It's very expensive, especially when you're dealing with hundreds, if not thousands, of rockets. Here you're talking about systems that, once developed, essentially, they don't cost very much money to work. It's incredible technology.
And I would think that, like, rationally, if I was the leader of Norway or the foreign minister of Norway or had anything to do with our relations to other countries, I would think that, awesome, this is great. Perhaps we could invest in this kind of technology. Perhaps we could, in Norway, work together with Israel, because we have that looming enemy up in Russia, who we now need to invest in our military to fend off, to deter. And what about if we could, like, invest in some kind of laser technology? Wouldn't it be? Don't you think it would be great if like Norway and Israel would work together militarily?
It's clear that if Norway wants the best technology in these fields, whether it's anti-drone technology, whether it's anti-rocket technology, protection of critical infrastructure, then defensive cyber technology, then Israel is the world leader in all of these, because we have to be, because no other country has required the need, except for, say, Ukraine. Just in the last couple of weeks, Germany invested a huge amount of money in acquiring Israel's Arrow 3 defensive technology, because Germany understands that if you want the best technology, which every country should, because every country's top priority should be the defense of its citizens, and Germany understands that, and we have a very close relationship with Germany, and that's why they bought this system, then Israel has the leading technology. Israel has the leading technology, and if you want to defend your citizens in the best possible way, including here in Norway, then the address is very simple. The address is that you need to work with these incredible Israeli companies making this cutting-edge technology. And I think there is an understanding. Politically, there are some who are trying to stop this cooperation. And those who lose out are the Norwegian civilians.
Yeah, definitely. And I also heard Finland is investing in Israeli technology as well. Is that a similar system, Arrow?
So I'm not quite sure as to what they're investing in exactly, but there are many countries. Yeah. The Israeli defense industry in the past year, 2025, has had its most successful year to date, because countries want to defend themselves in an increasingly unstable and dangerous world, and they want technologies that have been proved to work. Israel has the ultimate proof of concept when it comes to these technologies. And they understand that we need the best technology to defend our people. And that's why they look at the Israeli companies and work with them.
Because I heard Trump is also launching this whole, the Golden Dome. Of course, Israel has Iron Dome. Of course, Trump has the golden
It has
version.
to be gold.
Of course. Is that, and does Israel and the United States cooperate there too?
So the Iron Dome and many of our defense technologies, including the Arrow, including the David Sling, are either co-developed or the funding is joint between Israel and the Americans. The Iron Dome is certainly one example of that. So there we have very, very close cooperation, and because we know it's a clear mutual interest. So it's not that Israel has developed it and the Americans are interested. Rather, we work together with the Americans because we understand that the threats that we face are the same.
Yeah. Do you think the laser technology will also be exported and sold to different countries, or is that exclusive to Israel?
I don't think anything is exclusive. We work with our allies to counter mutual threats, and I suppose once it's been deployed, there will be a lot of interest in the same technology.
Speaking of mutual threats, lately I've been reading a lot about Hamas, which is obviously Israel's enemy, but that they have also weapons caches and bases and like sleeper cells throughout the whole of Europe. How much is actually Hamas also a threat to Europe and in particular Norway? And how much is actually that a mutual threat with Israel?
Well, Israel is perhaps the symptom, but Hamas is active and has been active, as we've seen recently in the media, including in Western Europe, active, both in terms of the arms that you mentioned, also in terms of funding and raising funds for continued terror activity. Of course, Israel is on the front lines, but Hamas doesn't just object to Israel and the Jewish state. It objects to Western values and everything that we believe in. So it doesn't matter whether it's in Israel or in Germany, in Norway, in France, in the UK. Hamas, it's not about Israel. And this is something that every Western country, I think, is increasingly understanding, is that Israel is fighting with the front line, with the border. We're the ones who are on the front line against radical Islamist extremism. But that's because of our geographical location. We are not just fighting the war for ourselves, but we're fighting the war on behalf of the entire Western world and for the values that we all believe in. That's why Israel is such an important ally to countries across the West, because they understand that we're at the forefront. But today, Islamist extremism is attacking all of our societies. We see it in the United States. We saw it on the holiest day of the Jewish year, on Yom Kippur in Manchester. We've seen it time and time and again in France, Belgium, Germany. You just look at the Christmas markets this year across Europe. After terrible terror attacks in previous years, and the security is incredible to prevent car rammings, to prevent terrorist attacks. So it's not an Israeli problem, and Hamas is a global problem. Hamas and everything that it represents. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Al Qaeda, ISIS. These are more than just terrorists fighting on the ground in Gaza. It's also an ideology, and those who are either funded by them or inspired by them. It's also state-sponsored. The Australians just recently expelled the Iranian ambassador to Australia, and he's not welcome, sent him out of the country because the security services in Australia discovered that Iran was behind 2 attacks on 2 different synagogues in Australia in the last couple of years. So we face this multifaceted conflict against organized terrorist groups, against individuals, let's call them lone wolves, who wake up in the morning inspired by terror, go and commit a terror attack like the one in Manchester, and also state-sponsored terrorism. And the Iranians are the leaders in that, and seeking to attack Jews, Israelis, all over the world. And again, maybe Jews are the first target, but it's not just about us. It's about everything that the West stands for.
Yeah, Hamas is Israel's problem and the world's problem. Is Hamas also Norway's problem?
Absolutely. Norway is within that community of nations. Norway is proud of its Western values, and these Western values go against everything that these terrorist groups believe in. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, LGBTQ, everything that's democracy, everything that we stand for and believe in, and our freedoms, is everything that they cannot stand and everything that they do not want. And Norway is as much a target as Australia, as France, Germany, the UK, anywhere in the West.
It seems a lot of terror attacks have been stopped last minute in Norway. Just speaking from what I read in the news, I think I read recently, like a couple of weeks or a month ago, that there was an actual terror attack that was directed directly towards Israelis and Jews in Norway that was stopped. And there wasn't a lot of more information about that, but just reading that, even if we haven't had that huge terror attack from Hamas yet in Norway, it's obvious that something's growing, something's happening behind the scenes.
It's a constant effort.
Yeah.
It's a constant effort. And I think many things we don't know because the intelligence services in Norway and around the world manage to prevent these terror attacks before they emerge, and we will have no idea that they were even planned. But of course, it's we can't rely solely on that. And as you know, I grew up in Manchester in the UK, and when there was the terror attack on the synagogue in Manchester, all the Jews in the UK said the same thing. It's shocking but not surprising. It was felt that it was a matter of time until something like this happens. And they were proved right. And the UK is the most recent on a long list of terror attacks against innocent Jews, but not just Jews or Israelis. When terrorists take a car and run people over in a German Christmas market, it's nothing to do with Jews. It's to do with our Western values inspired by, in that case, Christianity, Judaism. Everything that we stand for is contrary to what these extremist organizations think, want, and are willing to take action in order to stop and to create terror on the streets across Europe and the Western world.
How much is Western countries relying on Israeli intelligence to stop attacks from happening?
Israeli intelligence has a fantastic reputation, and without going into specifics, obviously, but it's known that there is good cooperation between Israeli intelligence and countries across the world, and perhaps I'll leave that one there. But it's a mutual interest
because it's relevant, because I saw in the news that Israel is almost talking about withholding intelligence from the UK because of the relationship there and what's been happening. I think it was because the UK was so eager to recognize the Palestinian state, and then Israel responded, "Hey, how about we don't let you get any more intelligence from us?" Well, how would that be?
So I don't want to speak about those specific cases, but I think everyone understands. All the Western nations understand that we have to work together to combat this joint threat. Said it's not an Israeli issue, and it's not just a Norwegian issue. It's an issue for all of us, and we have to work together in order to stop it. And every now and again, Israeli intelligence services will come out with a public statement saying we prevented an attack in Cyprus, in other countries across Europe, and and they work together with the local authorities to stop that attack. Again, I think we only hear a very small amount of it, but it's that intelligence cooperation is vital for all of us who want to maintain our Western way of life.
Yeah. Another issue is that I read Barth Eide, the foreign minister in Norway, was out, I think it was today or yesterday, speaking so warmly about the new government in Syria, the Ahmed al-Shara, the new leader, how this is a great government. What's Israel's position towards the new government in Syria, being a former Al-Qaeda leader and now put on a suit and is the new leader?
No, our interests are clear, and we've been taking action since the fall of the Assad regime, is that we have to ensure that the new regime or the new government in Syria respects various things. Firstly, our territorial integrity. We have a border along the Golan Heights with Syria, and it's critical that that does not turn into an area which threatens the state of Israel. We've also been very clear that the new government must respect the rights of all the minority groups in Syria. And we have a special relationship, as you know, with the Druze community in Syria, due to their close ties to the Druze community in Israel. And we have taken action to make sure that they are protected. And we also will not allow for example, the chemical weapons that were in Syria to fall into the wrong hands. And you will hear in the news about certain things that Israel has been doing in Syria since the fall of Assad. And of course, the proof is on the new leadership and new government of Syria to prove that they are a stable government that does not endorse terror, that wants a stable Syria for its people. And until it's proven, we have to be skeptical. We have to be very, very cautious. And that not everyone that puts on a suit and a tie is automatically seeking peace.
Because I've had the sisters Yara and Lina Zinedine, who are Norwegian Druze with family from Sueda in Syria. And for all the talk, everybody's chanting in Norway for the genocide that Israel is committing towards Gaza. Nobody's speaking up for the genocide that Ahmed al-Shara and his forces were doing onto Sueda, towards the Druze, the Christians, the Alawites. The horrible scenes that were there, they were actually sent, those girls and their family were actually sent video of their brother who was killed there by these terrorists who were storming into Sueda. And they are obviously very happy for the help from Israel, the IDF supporting there and standing strong against these forces. What do you think about what happened in Sueda?
When we saw the images from Sueda, well, those images reminded us of terrible times in our own history. Images of Druze men having their beards shaven, obviously the murders, and we cannot stand by the side. These communities are very close to the Israeli border. We have such a long history of cooperation and standing together with our Druze brothers and sisters. We cannot stand idly by and allow these things to happen. And that's why we've taken action, and we will continue to take action if it's necessary. But I think Israel's response to the attacks on the horrific attacks on the Druze community shows the new Syrian government that we are serious. And when we make that sort of commitment to protecting the minorities in Syria, then we mean it, and we will take action to ensure that happens. That is our commitment to them. And I think the Syrians understand that.
And lately, in other news from Syria, lately I saw that Ahmed al-Shara was going out and then encouraging people to protest against Israel. And then local leaders and a lot of people grouped together in different cities in Syria saying that they need to do jihad towards Israel and that they need to come together and walk towards, Golan Heights and commit like what seems to be like an October 7th style action towards Israel. Are you worried about that? What are your thoughts about that?
No, we don't take any risks. That's why, since the fall of the Assad regime, we have taken up some defensive positions in what is called the buffer zone between Israel and Syria. We will withdraw from that when we are assured and we can be guaranteed our security. The last thing that Israel wants or needs, or the Middle East needs, is that the Golan Heights, the stability there that we ensure, is destabilized. And the Golan Heights strategically is incredibly important. It's very high up. It overlooks northern Israel and overlooks Syria. And we will not let any groups in southern Syria destabilize the region. It is in the Middle East interests that Israel and Syria, that there is no conflict between either the countries or radical extremist groups within Syria. That is in nobody's interest, and we will ensure that the stability on our northern border is maintained.
Yeah, and because I remember back when Sweden was attacked, and a lot of Israeli citizens and people in the IDF, they wanted so bad to go and defend. And I remember these pictures of them being allowed through the fence and just go ahead, go up there and defend. And how strong is that relationship between the Jews community and the Jews in Israel?
The Druze community is an integral part of Israeli society. They are very loyal to the Jewish state. I mean, that's part of the Druze belief that you are loyal to the country in which you live. For many of them, they have family members on the other side of the border, and the border fence has, over the years, divided these families. So the family ties are very, very tight. And yes, in Israeli society, we work hand in hand with the Druze community. In the army, the Druze draft en masse to fight and to join the Israeli army, and they have done for many, many years. And we work together, we defend our country together, and that creates this incredible bond between the Jewish community and the Israelis in general, not just Jews, and the Druze community. They are really seen in Israel as our brothers and sisters. Myself, when I was serving in the army, I also served alongside Druze soldiers. We have Druze diplomats in the Israeli ministry, some very good friends, and they are fantastic diplomats, fantastic soldiers, fantastic citizens of the state of Israel. And there really is this very, very tight bond. And they're really, really appreciated.
Yeah, because Lena told me about that, how actually the Druze and the Jews have wandered together throughout history and almost been like brother people.
Mm-hmm.
And also that there are similarities there because they're also like an ethno-religion, because they're a people and they're also a religion.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are religious, and then so the similarities. But in other news, what do you think about the new government building that is being built here in Norway? Which was, as we know, torn down by this terrorist, Anders Behring Breivik, in 2011 as part of his terrorist actions.
Yes.
And now it's being rebuilt, but it's being rebuilt and decorated by this Palestinian artist called Jumana Mana, who on the October 7th itself went out with an Instagram story calling Hamas's actions on the Nova Festival as a creative resistance.
Right.
And she has now been dealt this honorable mission to decorate 800 square meters of the floor of the fundament of the whole government building.
Well, I saw, and I have to say, well done on raising awareness around this issue. Her comments surrounding the terrorist attacks on October the 7th are absolutely horrific. Instagram post saying, "Long live the creative resistance." There is nothing creative. It's not resistance. It is pure terror. The October 7th attacks were the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. Now, either the Norwegian government didn't know about this, which would be a serious error on its part in awarding and continuing the work of someone who sympathizes and glorifies terror in such a way, or the Norwegian government did know about this and chose to ignore it, which I think is even worse. And it's something that we're in conversation with the Norwegian government, but really this is something that the Norwegian public should be very, very worried and angry about. This isn't just an Israeli-Palestinian conflict issue. This is about someone who supports and glorifies terror being given a central location in order to express herself, when really this person should not be given anything. Rather, she should be condemned and pushed away. And as you said, it's particularly problematic because these are buildings that were damaged in a terror attack, and you have a sympathizer for terror, a different type of terror, but still terror, being given such a prominent place to showcase their artwork. 800 square meters of flooring by someone who made these really horrific comments. So I hope this really initiates a serious public discussion here in Norway. Is this really what we want? Is this what we want? Someone who proudly celebrated the terrorists of October the 7th being the one given such a prominent place in the center of Oslo. It's we express our dissatisfaction and say this is incredibly problematic. But Norwegians need to be those who are coming out and saying this should not be in the center of our capital city, not just in the center of our capital city, in the center of our government quarter. Is this really what our government and what our country wants and needs?
And also what makes this particularly serious is that this is a part of an art project that is supposed to last for 300 years. The government building is made to last for 300 years, and this artwork will last for 300 years. And shouldn't one be particularly, what would you say, careful about who you choose to do that and what kind of artwork? Because I know, because I have different sources tell me in messages and so forth, people have been working on their project tell me in confidence that, to be able to work that project, everything about you is screened. Your relationships, your background, your social media, your Instagram post, your Facebook post, everything is screened. And if anything were to even make you doubtful about this person, then that is flagged. There is nothing that gets past. Everything is screened, right? And then that makes it particularly peculiar that this person goes right through. And it's not like they didn't know about this either, because if I know about it, like a normal citizen know about it, I would think that our government would know about it.
I'm sure.
And also it was written about, this was a problem in both Germany and the United States right after October 7th too, because she was supposed to have an art exhibition and this was brought up. Like, how can we have somebody who supports terror and an art exhibition? And it's not like this is like news. It's just that I came across it now, but they should really have known about this.
Well, I'll be interested to see. I'm aware that one of the politicians from the Christian Democrat Party has submitted a parliamentary question to the Prime Minister. Yes. It's easier for you to say that. Has submitted a parliamentary question to the Prime Minister about this issue, and I'll be very interested to see what the response is.
Yeah, because there he is required to answer.
Absolutely.
He can't dodge the question. He has to answer.
That's right.
Yeah.
What did Norway know, and what does it plan to do? I don't think Norwegians want, from what I've learned about Norwegians in the 4 months that I've been here, I'm pretty sure they don't want a major artwork by someone who glorifies a horrific terror attack in the center of their government area. That does not sound to me like something that Norway wants. They said it's really an issue for Norway, and say, is this what we want to represent us?
Of course, in the spirit of balance, I will have to play devil's advocate also because we don't have any opposing voices. I guess the counter argument would be that, hey, yeah, she made a mistake, but she came out a little bit later, I think it was a month later, and wrote like a public kind of apology where she said that, yeah, I don't support this kind of violence, and hey, I was wrong, and I deleted it, and it was a mistake. So like a public apology. What do you think about that? Does that make it okay? Does that clean everything, her slate, and
Well,
make it okay?
we spoke about the mask slipping. I don't think in this time that you can't just say something that is so bad and then say, well, I apologize, and then everything is okay. Actions have consequences. Actions have consequences, and we're not talking about something small here. We're talking about a major artwork in the center of the government area in the capital city of Norway. I don't think in cases like this, you can just put your hands up and say, I got it right. I got it wrong. Accept my apology. Let's move on and let's do this huge piece of work together. Actions and attitudes have consequences. And I'm quite sure that if someone in Norwegian society was to glorify the terrorist attack carried out by Breivik, I don't think it would be enough to say a month after, actually, I didn't understand. The context was missing. I didn't mean it, and then carry on as normal. I don't think that would be the case. But perhaps there's something about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that makes things a little bit different.
Yeah, because what's also interesting is that she's not just making a neutral kind of artwork towards humanism or whatever. It's a political artwork about a city in a Palestinian area called Sebastia, I think, which is like, it's a political artwork with a political statement. So that just makes it even more connected to her expression regarding October 7th.
So this I guess brings me to another point. If Norway, and I believe it does, wants to see peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians, why not commission an artwork that is done together by a Palestinian and an Israeli? Something that really talks about peace, about coexistence. In previous years, I know I understand it didn't happen this year, but the Oslo Municipal Building put a Palestinian flag on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinians, which is another issue that I have, I can talk about that also for a long time. But, if you want peace and coexistence between the Palestinians and the Israelis, why not put an Israeli flag and a Palestinian flag? If you insist on putting a Palestinian flag, then why not put an Israeli flag? Neither the Israelis or the Palestinians are going anywhere. We're there in the Middle East together. We have to find a solution. But if all the focus is consistently on the Palestinians, and you, going back to what we said earlier, erase the Israelis from every narrative and every conversation, then you're not advancing the cause of peace. Where are the initiatives that bring Israelis and Palestinians or Arabs together? I haven't seen them.
Speaking of solutions, let's talk a little bit about what's happening on the ground in Gaza right now. And people are speaking about this yellow line and the peace plan that was initiated by Netanyahu and Trump. And where are we right now? What's the situation now? And what do you feel going forward?
So this is a critical time. The peace plan has many different phases. And one of the critical parts of this peace plan is the move from phase 1 to phase 2. Now, phase 1 was supposed to see the return of the stopping of the fighting, the withdrawal of Israeli forces to this yellow line, and the release of all the hostages, living and dead. We still have one hostage in Gaza, Ran Gvili, who remains there. We have no doubt that Hamas and the other terrorist organizations in Gaza know exactly where his body is, as they have known exactly where the bodies of everyone else is. And that is really an attempt just to buy time to let Hamas reestablish itself strengthen itself, re-exert control over Gaza. But the move from phase 1 to phase 2 is critical. Phase 2 involves the establishment of a temporary stabilization force, which is supposed to replace Hamas and basically act as a temporary government in Gaza. And that's really vital that it succeeds. And the Americans, together with us, we're doing everything we can in order to make that succeed. It's very challenging. And I imagine more details will be published in the near future. But that is vital for the future of Gaza. If Gaza falls back into the hands of Hamas, then the future is already written. We can tell the future immediately. It's only a matter of time until the next October the 7th. So it's really critical that there is a new government, a neutral one that does not support terror, one that is able to reconstruct Gaza in a way that means that the money that the international community sends to Gaza does not go back into the hands of Hamas. That it goes to building infrastructure and building upwards, and not building, as Hamas repeatedly did, building underneath tunnels and building downwards, rebuilding its terror infrastructure. So this is a critical moment. We demand the release of the final hostage and that Hamas is replaced by this stabilization force composed of different international actors that we can trust. So I imagine the next days and weeks will be critical in that process, and at the same time, we're ensuring that aid gets to the people who need it in Gaza, to those innocent civilians who really do need aid going into the winter. The idea is to send that aid into Gaza and for it to avoid, to not get into the hands of Hamas. That is also critical. And Hamas today, you spoke about the yellow line. I was listening to a good friend of mine, former government spokesperson, Eytan Halon, who said, the equation has changed in Gaza. Hamas, until recent weeks, held on to dozens of hostages as their insurance to avoid their being eliminated. They held on to these hostages to buy time and to remain in power. Now today, we're on the verge of returning all our hostages. And Israel, which stays at this yellow line, temporary yellow line, has withdrawn to this area, essentially controls this part of Gaza as insurance to make sure that in the day after, the aid and the necessary reconstruction is not controlled by Hamas. So the formula has changed. Hamas used to have this insurance policy. Today, Israel has this insurance policy, and we will make sure that whatever goes into Gaza, which is greatly needed, goes to the hands of the civilians and not to the hands of the terrorists.
Of course, the world will probably start chanting like, look, Israel is occupying Gaza again. They're occupators.
So, I must say, look, we have fulfilled our obligations under the ceasefire plan. And there have been no complaints from any of the guarantors of the ceasefire plan, the Americans, the Qataris, the Egyptians, that Israel is not meeting its obligations. So at this moment, look, it is meant to be temporary. We are meant to withdraw further once the situation has been stabilized in Gaza. And this is really what should ensure, should everything go to plan, that Gaza does not fall back into the hands of Hamas.
Because I remember reading through the plan, which is like, is it 20 points? In the
20
plan?
points.
Yeah, and that one of the points is that Israel looks positively upon having the Palestinian Authority ruling Gaza, but that needs to be a reformed Palestinian Authority, like a truly reformed, not just like a sentence like, hey, we're a new party now, we're all new, but a truly reform is something different. And how can you ensure and be sure of that if you're saying like a green light to the Palestinian Authority? How do you know if they are reformed or not?
I'll give you one key example. And this is why we have to be very skeptical about their ability and willingness to execute these reforms. The Palestinian Authority for many years has paid salaries and stipends to the families of Palestinian terrorists, what we call pay for slay.
Shaheeds.
Yeah. There's a financial incentive to go out and murder Jews. It's not just about incitement in the school books, and there's plenty of that, but it's, if you go out and commit a terror attack and murder Jews, your family will receive money for the rest of their lives. It's financial incentivization of terror. Now, a few months ago, the Palestinian Authority came out and said, okay, we're stopping this. But it's not true. We have proof, and the international community has also seen it with their own eyes, that it's not a matter of stopping those salaries. Just the salaries are paid via a different route. It doesn't come straight out of the Palestinian Authority bank account into the bank account of the families. Rather, they have to go to the post office and receive something. But it's the same policy, the same incentivization, just with a different look, a kind of revamped or renovated pay-for-slay scheme. Now, we cannot allow a Palestinian Authority or an organization that incentivizes the murder of Israelis and Jews to get their hands on Gaza. That is not the recipe for a peaceful future. That's key for us. There cannot be an organization that gives money to the families of murderers that takes control of Gaza in the day after. It's simply unacceptable.
And also, it's a disclaimer in that 20-part peace proposal, in that either Hamas puts down their weapons like voluntarily, or they just get out of the picture, or Israel has to militarily strip them of their weapons.
That's right. That's right. The Trump peace plan specifically says that, if Hamas prevents the deal or intentionally delays the deal and the progress of this peace plan, then we have the right to take action. And we've learned that no one else is going to take action in our place. The only country that will take action to prevent Hamas from reestablishing itself is Israel. And we can't outsource our security to anyone else. Let's hope it doesn't get to that. Our preference is that we have a diplomatic solution, that the Trump peace plan moves forward peacefully, supported by all these nations, and that soon we're looking in a more optimistic manner as we start 2026 at Gaza that can turn into something else.
Are you hopeful that that could actually happen, or is that like a dim little hope that maybe happen?
No, I think we're hopeful because the American administration is putting a huge amount of time and effort into this, and I think the world has been repeatedly surprised by what the current administration in Washington has been able to achieve, including the ceasefire deal and bringing in countries from around the world, including passing a resolution in the Security Council, which today is very, very difficult. You have the Americans on one side and the Russians and the Chinese on the other. Almost is paralyzed. But the Americans have managed to get this through. So I would be very cautious in casting doubt. It's difficult. The situation on the ground is difficult, turning this into a reality. But we've managed to get, against all odds, every single one but one of our hostages back. We have managed to withdraw to a certain line in Gaza, which gives us that insurance policy that I was discussing. And the entire world is behind this plan, apart from the obvious, obvious actors, Hamas, no. The Iranians, no. Hezbollah, obviously not.
Because I know that Netanyahu is actually visiting Trump again in the White House. How important is that meeting, and what does that signal to the world? I think this is fifth
or sixth, even since the start of the year. That relationship, the Israeli-American relationship, is critical, and it's stronger than ever. There is full coordination on these issues between the Israelis and the Americans. So that meeting will be very important, both in terms of what happens in Gaza, but also regarding what happens in the Middle East in general. Iran, Lebanon, Syria, these are all issues that I'm sure will be on the table when they meet. And really, Israel and America have been working hand in hand on these issues for years, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, because the bipartisan support for Israel in the United States has been the backbone of our relationship, and we have no more important ally than the United States, and that's become increasingly clear. I mean, we already knew it, but I think everybody understands it today, and we will continue to work very closely with our allies in Washington.
On Friday, I'm having the director of Amnesty International Norway coming here because I criticized him so much in the public.
So he wanted to come?
Yeah, he wanted to come. So
okay.
They asked, actually, can we come? And I said, yeah, sure. I'd love to speak to you because I have a lot of criticisms about Amnesty International. I thought I'd ask you about it too because I had Daniel Haas here on the podcast, former from Human Rights Watch, and Dr. Yariv, formerly from Amnesty International Israel.
Yes.
And two things there is like the situation with Amnesty Israel is that they were closed down by the Amnesty International globally because they refused to parrot what the global division said about Israel committing genocide. So they were like, oh, let's just close down your chapter. That's one thing. And the other thing is that I learned from Danielle and Dr. Yariv that they have been working on an official report about October 7th ever since October 7th, but they refused to publish it because that could change the narrative and favor Israel's or a more understanding image of Israel, so they won't publish it. What do you think about these things?
I think it's really sad that what is a historically an important human rights organization has been turned into such a hostile actor, biased actor, that there is very little connection today. When it comes to Israel, very little connection between Amnesty International and the facts and the truth. It wasn't convenient for Amnesty International to hear the opposition of its own branch in Israel that is there on the ground. So the easiest thing and the most convenient thing to do was to shut it down. Rather than dealing with the truth, you just shut it down and put your hands over your ears and ignore it. So, this unfortunately, Amnesty International is a shadow of its previous self, and it has a clear obsession and mission when it comes to Israel, and it wants to delegitimize the Jewish state, undermine it, and do as much damage as possible. So I look forward to your discussion with him. It'd be interesting to see how the head of Amnesty International Norway responds to everything that's happened. But it also there's this wider issue about misinformation and disinformation that we see, and there is this basically circle that feeds itself with regards to the war in Gaza. Hamas and its propaganda efforts, they will publish reports and figures about what's happening on the ground in Gaza. The NGOs, including Amnesty International, will cite and quote those reports and those claims. The UN, the United Nations, will cite the NGOs in its reporting about the situation in Gaza. And the United Nations will say, this is what the NGOs are saying, and give it the United Nations stamp of approval. And then the NGOs will say, well, look at the United Nations. The United Nations is saying that this is what's happening in Gaza, and cite the United Nations. And it's basically this circle that constantly feeds itself. And it all starts with Hamas propaganda in Gaza. And Amnesty International are certainly part of that ecosystem. And that's really regrettable because we should be, and I know there's great trust in Norway for NGOs and human rights organizations, including Amnesty. But we look at its activity, it's not about what's actually happening, and it's not about facts. It's about using its influence and its name to attack the state of Israel in whatever way it can.
What do you think about them not publishing that report on October 7th because it could change the narrative?
Well, that's exactly it. It's about ignoring the truth because the truth doesn't fit the agenda. And we see it in United Nations reports, and we see it in many reports issued by these human rights organizations, Amnesty and others, that if you recognize that something happened on October the 7th, which is the context and the reason for Israel's defensive war, then somehow it weakens their human rights agenda. If the murder of 1,200 Israelis and kidnapping of 250 more doesn't fit into your human rights agenda, then there's a real issue with your concept of human rights. I mean, where are the human rights for those who were murdered in their beds or held for over 2 years in Hamas captivity? Where is the Red Cross in Gaza? They didn't visit one hostage even once over the past 2 years. It's a damning failure of human rights organizations across the world that they're not able to fulfill their mandate if they look at the truth. So they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in only using facts or information that fits their predetermined messaging and agenda.
Lately, these couple of days, we also seen a report from NGO Monitor coming out and saying that, I'm paraphrasing, but that Hamas has a certain holds certain positions in different kinds of NGOs, and also highlighting a Norwegian NGO. I think it was Norwegian
The Refugee Council.
Refugee Council.
Yes.
Well, what's your comment on that?
Well, I'm pleased to see that it's been reported in Norwegian media. I saw TV2 published a piece about it, and that's important. The Norwegian public understand what is going on, but it sheds it places a spotlight on this issue that human rights organizations are embedded within the Hamas apparatus. These reports are very concerning. But are they surprising? Probably not, because we look at UNRWA, the UN Refugee Agency for the Palestinians, deeply, deeply embedded in Gaza terror groups. I mean, their members were involved in the October 7th terror attacks. Their members held senior positions in the Gaza education system. During the day, you're the principal of a Gaza school, and in the evening, you are a member of a terrorist organization committed to the massacre of Israelis and Jews. Tunnels built underneath the compounds and premises of UN organizations in Gaza. There is such an issue with these organizations being embedded and either working hand in hand, or at least, turning a blind eye to the presence of terror operatives in these organizations. So this is a real issue, and I think we're only hearing some of it. But that's why we say that, for example, UNRWA is part of the problem, not part of the solution. It perpetuates terror. And Norway has to look at its own organizations and say, are they doing all that they can to really be neutral and avoid any sort of connections with these terrorist groups? And if not, something must be done about that. But also the wider picture of what do we need to do in order to prevent the United Nations working with Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and all other NGOs and human rights organizations from working closely together with terrorist organizations and terrorists.
As we're going towards the end of the conversation now, we always have to end on a positive note,
yes,
as my friend Louisa Kahn from Coos and Cows always says. So I learned that for you, so shout out to Louisa Kahn. Because Hanukkah is approaching.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what is Hanukkah and why do we celebrate that, and how will you celebrate?
So Hanukkah is another one of these Jewish festivals where we...
And many of them.
Yeah, many of them. Where basically there are those that tried to destroy us.
Yeah.
They failed, or we overcame them. And then we celebrate by eating a lot of food. And Hanukkah is about the Jewish rebellion against the Greeks who overtook the second Jewish temple in Jerusalem. And the Maccabees, the brave Jewish rebels, defeated them and regained control of the temple. And then the story goes that there was the menorah in the temple, the candelabra, and it was always burning in the temple. The menorah was always burning, and they only had enough pure oil for 1 day, but it lasted 8 days. This is the miracle of Hanukkah, and that's why Hanukkah is an 8-day festival in which we eat a lot of things which are fried in oil. Lots of donuts, lots of kind of fried foods. and we light a candle of the Hanukkah every evening. The presents aren't quite as good as Christmas presents. Growing up in the UK, I looked at my Christian friends and I was very envious. I'd receive a pair of socks and they'd receive a PlayStation. Never mind. So we look forward to celebrating that with friends and family. And it really is, I suppose, over the last 2 years, this festival has gained greater meaning because the symbolism of the festival is that the light of the Hanukkah dispels the darkness. And we can turn that into the darkness into society, talk about the darkness that Israel has endured over the past 2 years, and Israel and the Jewish people all around the world. And we light these lights every night to wish for the victory of light over darkness. You can take that metaphor in many, many directions. And that's what we'll do this Hanukkah, starting next week, starting on the 13th. And let's hope that 2026 brings a lot more light than it does darkness. And I think that's something we can all get behind.
Yes, hopefully so. And I wish you and your family a good and happy Hanukkah as well.
Thank you, and to you.
Thank you, and a good New Year. And we'll probably see each other again on the New Year and speak more about the development of the situation.
I look forward to it.
Thank you for now.
Thank you.